Yeah. So 2022, our goal was 100 miles. We both didn't reach 100 miles that I know of. And but I think the year was a success. What are your overall thoughts on 2022?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It was a success. I look back at the month by month comparison on Garmin. I got to 2,500 miles. You probably crushed that. You were what, 3,500?
6.
3,600.
Yeah.
So that was pretty close to, I think, your goal. I mean, you were trying to do 300 a month, which is 3,600. So I fell way short. I came up short in March and then November, December, which we can talk about. But in general, I mean, that's the most I've ever run in a year, and it's a lot of miles. So that was good. And I'm not too worried about not having hit 100 because that's a significant event that you got to build up to. So, but I put a ton of miles in, and I learned a lot, and I'm actually excited to change the plan for this next year. See, just by comparison, see how it works. But yeah, it was my first. I think it was our first full year as ultra runners. That was the way I looked at it. The year prior, we were ramping up to it. We were kind of hitting milestones, but last year was like, this is what I do now, and I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I'm totally hooked. I look at, I don't know, we both got to 90, 91, 90, 91, right? We both hit 90. Last man standing was just an amazing experience. Left me wanting more. Like that's hooked me into ultra running more than anything else. You're gonna say something, sorry. And I I absolutely learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I think the 3,600 was, I mean, just, I mean, I went into the year thinking I'm just gonna focus on miles. I'm through everything else. I'm just doing miles, and I think that was probably a mistake. I know looking after towards the end of the year, just like once I got past Millinocket and just looking like I'm 10 months out from the next last man standing, to just keep that focus going for that length of time. It's just hard to stay focused on one goal for a year. Like it's too much. Like, it's got to be broken up. And I think it led to too many injuries. And it gave me confidence in my body that it didn't have before. Like I can put up these miles. I can do the miles that elite runners do. So I have this ultra confidence in my body, but I found my weaknesses too, like at last man standing. So yeah, the year was an awesome success.
Yeah. I think the mileage, it's just, I mean, you did a ton of miles, and to be that consistent definitely takes a toll on the body. I mean, and I think, but the objective, right, is to see if you can do it. It wasn't necessarily designed for any kind of performance plan where you're, on a system where that's leading you up to some sort of event. It was more like, how hard can I push my body? And I think, you get an A+ in that arena.
Well,
but now you can do it.
Yeah, and I honestly, the thing I think that might be most attractive to what we're doing as opposed to like marathon running is you can pull up a marathon plan. There's lots of different marathon plans, and I do these sprints and these mileage, and it's all laid out for you, and you follow the plan. Which, I mean, I did a little bit of that for like a month, and it was cool just to follow a plan. But there is no plan for your limit. You know what I mean? Like there is, and you look at every ultra runner out there, they have different ways that they approach it and different strengths and weaknesses, like, and how they're attacking them. So we're winging it, and I love that. I love we're just, I mean, to me, I kind of think every day I'm kind of pushing myself to my limit.
Yeah, which was the goal. I think we came close to accomplishing that, you more so than me, this past year, of just getting comfortable with some of our limits and seeing how we can push through them. I mean, that's really the goal of ultra running for me. It's not an event or a mileage marker. It's just consistently putting disciplined work in to stretch your limit. And I know 2,500 miles in a year is extremely achievable. which is wild. So I could keep pushing that if I wanted to. If annual numbers were important to me now, I know I could continue to push that, but I'm kind of changing the philosophy a little bit. But it was a good year to kind of just get some fundamental baselines in as to what you can and can't do, and then learn from that.
Let's talk. I want to talk to you about 13 by 31 because
Yeah,
I
that was the biggest learning lesson.
I want to hear all about it, but I was very impressed. Like, I know your schedule makes consistency for like a longer period of time harder, and that you, if I had guessed, I wouldn't have expected you to go as long as you did. Would you go 20?
24.
I mean, you learned everything I learned for.
I'm notorious for getting close to the finish line and then stopping, which is ridiculous. That's a problem, which we can address. It needs to be addressed.
For me, that was an awesome month. Like I actually I plan to like do that as a training month, not right before the race, but maybe like July or something like that, or somewhere fitting in because it's a ton of mileage. It's totally doable. You're constantly running on tire. I felt like it was one of my best training months, even though I'm trying not to focus on miles. It was an awesome month. Yeah, just talk to me about what you thought of the whole thing.
I will do. Well, I would like to plan to do 13 by 31 in October again this year.
Absolutely.
A couple of reasons. One, I actually forgot how beautiful it was running in the fall, in October. I mean, the pictures, just the scenery was unbelievable, and it forced me to be out every day looking at, and also just like from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, just watching the colors change and the weather change. So it was very picturesque, which helped. It was just like I was like, wow, I forgot how much I enjoyed being on the road at this time of year. So I think October is just a good month. Like, it's not super busy. It's kind of tailing the end of the year, so it's very doable. The 13 miles a day is very doable as well. I think I got several 13 straight milers in during that time, especially on the weekends, but it's easy to cut it up into like a 7 and a 6 or a 10 and a 3. 10 and a 3 was probably my favorite if I had to split it up, because psychologically at the end of the day, I was like, okay, I can go run for 30 minutes and get a 3 miler in. If I had a 6 miler lingering towards the end of the day, it was a little rough, but there was different ways to split that up.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 10 and 3.
Yeah, 10
if I did like a 7-6 or something like that, I would feel it the next day more.
Right.
It's like the rest between when I finish running to the end of the day. I don't know. The recovery.
It's like it's a micro rest, right? I mean, like, if you do 6 at the end of the day, you're pretty tired. If you versus 3, it's really just kind of stretching your legs out, and then you're ready for the next day. So that was good. Although going out like on a Saturday and just doing straight 13 was nice because you could just get it out of the way and not have to worry about it. But the thing that's I learned, I think, 2 big takeaways from that month, other than the failure, which we should talk about, is when you get into the grind and you're doing 13 miles straight for multiple weeks on end, which is 100 miles plus a week, your body really can't handle it. Like, it's a lot. Like, I was tired at times and I was running on tired legs, but I was locked in. Like, I was running every single run like it was a fresh run, and I remember talking to some people and they're like, when do you rest? Like, what do you, and I was like, you don't need rest. I mean, technically you really don't. If we were training for a performance, we would probably be at a disadvantage, but we're just trying to see how active our bodies can be on a consecutive basis. And you can go for a long time, and you could do more than 13 miles, if you needed to. So that was a big takeaway. And then when I stopped is when all of the injuries and the stress to the nervous system started to come in, right? So I think your body, I don't know biologically how it works, but your body just kind of stays on high alert. You're like, all right, this is what we're doing. We're grinding, we're going hard, and I'm gonna keep up with you, like, and we're gonna push this. when I stopped is when I started to fall apart. But that's fine. You just plan for that.
Interesting, because I think I'm coming to a similar conclusion. Not particularly that month, but I mean, we're training. I mean, the way I kind of look at a lot of this, we're training to be comfortable with uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So that 13 by, I mean, we've talked about in the past doing the 30-20s. That was kind of going into the year, like 30-20s on the weekends, like the big run, and then the like two big runs back to back, so that second day you're so much more tired, and it replicates what running in these backyard ultra races is like. And the 13 by 31, even like you said, it was totally doable. I didn't feel overdone, but my legs were tired, and there wasn't, like, I knew where I was. I knew that I was still in the grind, and it definitely like kind of replicated that. Mentally, it was a challenge. There's times where, I mean, you're aware that I'm not getting any rest,
Right.
and your body's handling, and you're in the grind, but like it's a challenge every day, which I don't know a better way to kind of prep our minds for what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even I say 10 miles in the morning and 3 at night was the best way to split it up. But even that 3 miles, so like early in the morning, you look forward and you're like, all right, I can do 3 at the end of the day. But when that end of the day comes and you're exhausted and it's dark and you had a full day, 3 miles is a mental chore. And that's part of the process. Is I can go out and run 3 miles on my legs for sure, but I got to put my shoes on and get ready and go back out into the weather. And that's part of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And so that's a great training arena to push that. So, I think I learned that you can hold up steady miles on a consecutive basis for a long period of time. And that was part of the objective. The other thing that I did learn, though, which I still haven't figured this one out, is I thought coming out of that month, even though I came up short, I was going to be in like really good shape, right? Like just a strong baseline of endurance. And I ended up getting sick at the end of the month, which really kind of took me out, plus a back injury, which we can talk about. But when I went back in November on Thanksgiving to run a marathon, I felt like I had never run before, which was so frustrating. I was like, wait, I had just put up 300 miles in like a little over 3.5 weeks, not even 3 weeks ago. And this marathon was an absolute chore. It was a very tough 26 miles. So, which led me to a bit of a different conclusion in 2023, which is I'm not sure that for events, for running long miles for time, whether it's backyard ultra or otherwise, these ridiculous monthly training events are actually adding value. Mentally, it's helping with the idea that, hey, I can handle this, and checking the box on, grinding and being comfortable, being uncomfortable. But just pure performance, it could even be a detriment, in some regards. So that made me realize, I thought like after October I was going to be Ironman, and it just didn't happen. So I loved the event. I'm going to do it again, but it's more of a personal push, to put myself in an uncomfortable space than it is to add miles and get better at running.
Right.
That was how I saw it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, obviously I feel differently.
Okay.
But I didn't, not that, I mean, I 100% agree that I don't know if it's beneficial in actually, like, I mean, obviously, like, if we're going to do bench press, we want to get better at bench press. We're going to bench press and we're going to take time off and let our body recover, then bench press again. You tear it down, you let it rest and recover, and you're not getting recovery. So like it's definitely a detriment in that aspect for sure. But for me, just the mental confidence of just like crushing 400 plus miles in a month, like, and just if you can come out of it in a good place, then
right.
then it just mentally worth it. Which, I mean, I think I agree with Jason when he says that last man standing is a mental thing. It's you don't need, and he doesn't put up half that mileage in a month. He's mentally he's done that race enough times, knows where he can get to, and now it's just pushing beyond that. So it's between the ears. And for me, if I can do that month and get out of it healthy, or maybe a simulated week, maybe a couple weeks, I don't know what it looks like. I haven't planned that out yet, but if I can do that and get out of it healthy, then I'm just mentally like, my confidence is through the roof. You know what I mean? So that's that's a tricky game, right? Because you go slightly too far, you go one extra day, and you get injured, and your confidence is shot, or you get out of it and you feel like you can achieve anything.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's confidence in the head game, like you said, between the ears, and you just have to kind of duplicate that environment. I mean, that's really the goal. You can't get mentally tough if you're not in a mentally tough situation. So that's a huge goal for knocking out something like a 13 by 31 for a month. And ultimately, what took me down was the mental aspect. I actually meant to look back on my calendar and see. I can't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a Monday. I was traveling for work, and I just knew I wasn't going to get the miles in. Well, and again, this is part of the whole process. Like, you can make excuses, and that's all that they are. I probably had from 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. available. I'm confident that I did, and that's all it takes is 2 hours to go out and run 13 miles. I chose not to, right? I chose to let myself fail. It wasn't that it was impossible. I just was a little bit trickier that day. And then, so you make these little choices that, your body's like, hey, like, you're busy today. You put up a lot of miles. Just get back on it the next day. So one, I let that schedule be an excuse for missing a day. And then I have this other problem where once it's not perfect, right? Once I don't have the plan executed perfectly, then I just throw the entire thing out. And that's a huge problem when it comes to ultra, right? Where and last man standing is a really good example, right? Like, if you have a bad lap, and the rails start to come off, right? If you just are like, well, this is it, this is the beginning of the end, I might as well just quit now, you'll always come up short. And that's really the goal, is to be able to have a bad lap or have a bad day and then get right back on it the next lap or the next day. And October exposed that weakness in my my capabilities. So I've got to do some work on that. And really, unfortunately, the only way to do that work is to get yourself back into that situation.
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that failure and what it teaches you, and it brings you down. Like I mean, we can get into my funk, but I mean, I was in quite a bit of funk there. And it's just like getting out of that, and then looking back on what it's taught me and what I learned from, like, honestly, the most valuable stuff comes out of that failure. That's where you really learn. What are your thoughts on, because I mean, you talked about that you get close and you fail. Well, are you handling that failure right? If not, how do you get better at it, and what it teaches you?
Yeah, I'm not handling that failure well. It's happened multiple times now where I get really close to meeting an objective, but my the difference between reality and expectation has got a big gap in it, right? So on the 100-mile attempt, I got to 90 miles, and I thought I was going to get 100 miles done in a certain period of time. But by the time I got to 90, I realized I was going to have to walk the last 10 miles, which was going to throw my time expectation way off. And I kind of collapsed under that gap of, expectation and reality. And that's really what failure is, right? Where you work really hard for something and you expect it to come out this way. And then life kicks in, and expectation doesn't live up to reality, or vice versa. And if you can push through that and say, okay, well, I'm going to change my expectation. I'm not going to worry about, so I missed the day in the October 13 by 31, right? Okay, well, at least I got 30 out of 31. That would have been the better way to handle it. Whereas I said, all right, well, it wasn't perfect. I might as well just stop. And it's a huge sign of weakness, in my opinion. That is really what's keeping me from hitting, bigger and bigger milestones in the ultra running objective. I probably could dig a little bit deeper to figure out what's actually going on. I don't know if I've spent enough time on it yet, but it's something that I got to do some work on.
We've literally chosen a sport and a way to approach this sport in that we should be failing. We should be failing often, right? I mean, we're trying to get to that edge of failure and then see if we can get through. Just what you talked about. I mean, the more we can get to that edge and push through it, the better, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. So like failure, honestly, we should be looking at failure as a success, right? When you hit the barrier, either way, the more you get to that barrier, the more you're going to be able to handle that barrier. I guess maybe if you constantly lose, that's not a good thing, but we're trying to get there, right? I mean, so like, I look at some of the injuries I've had and it gets me down, man. Just the smallest injury that like sets things back. Cause I had, just like you were talking about, I have this expectation of the goal, my weekly goals, my daily goals, my whatever it is that I want to hit. And now I can't. And it's slipping away from me. And I go into this funk and I eat like crap and everything. It's like, I should be thinking of that as a success in a weird way. Like I pushed myself to my limit. I got there. Now let's get through this next challenge. Cause I mean, we're all about challenging ourselves. Well, that injury is a challenge. Recovering from the injury, those aren't easy workouts either. They're different workouts, I mean, ideally I think avoiding injuries a better path, but I'm just talking that as like what I see in my head as a failure and flipping that around. It's like you got to 90 and you experienced that uncomfortableness. You got there and I'm sure you felt that you could have quit at 80, you could have quit at 85, you could, what I mean? Like you overcame lots of things to get to 90. It's not like you breathed there.
I think that's a good point, and that's really the way it needs to be. Is you need to look at those failures as accomplishments, and I don't mind calling them failures or did not finish DNFs because you got to put it down on paper and learn from it. Okay, well, why did I DNF? Why did I not fail? Was it purely mental? Was there something else going on? So you can go back and look at it and address it. But if we're not failing, we're not trying, right? So flipping it and saying, okay, what did I learn? And looking at this as just another data point to get better is, in hindsight, that's easy to do. In the moment, right? How can you flip a failure around like in the exact moment and say, okay, this isn't going exactly as I would plan, but can I continue to go? Can I push through it? Is something that I need to get better at. And the other thing too is that I think a lot of part of when I start to kind of close down, it's like a computer system shutting down in my mind. Like when I get to that point, I think systems just start to like, shut down. I get the blue screen in my head, which is like, yeah, this is over. I tend to think, I'm like, I remember thinking in October, because I shouldn't say you breezed through the month, but you got all 31 days done. When I'm going through those experiences, I often think to myself, like, well, I'm in a funk, and Ben never gets in a funk, right? Like Ben does 3,500 miles in a year. He just pushes through. I'm clearly, softer and weaker mentally than he is, and and I get very, introspective and hard on myself, and that's silly, right? Because you go through funks, and everybody does, and I think that's a huge disadvantage to yourself, right? If you think everybody else is sailing through life and I'm the only one struggling with this, not only does that like really kind of, it's fuel for the fire. It's like, yeah, you're struggling. Nobody else is struggling. You should just quit. If you can step back and say, look, this is part of the process and everybody struggles with something. I'm not special. It diminishes that failure a little bit to the point where you can push through it.
Does it motivate you
So,
too?
what's that?
Does that motivate you too, though? Like, because I know when you're grinding and when you're in it, it pushes me. It's like, damn it, he's getting after it, or I definitely use that as fuel. It always cracks me up how you and I think of things differently, but I don't, I feel like I'm suffering. I follow all these runners who just talk about how much they enjoy running. I freaking hate it. I hate it. I mean, there's things I love about running, and there's definitely every run I find enjoyment, right? Like but putting on my shoes and going out running, like I don't, for the most, like I feel like I'm suffering all the time. Like it's always a grind, and I feel so mentally weak. but but I let myself. But that's something I've actually like. I think I've let myself. I've come to a whole conclusion of like I like living in that thought of being weak and miserable. Like I'm letting myself just enjoy hating myself.
I think you're good at that. And as long as you're getting the results that you're looking for and you're walking around during the day generally happy with yourself, I think that can be really strong motivation. I let it get on top of myself too much. Yeah, I mean, for me, it doesn't become fuel at some point. It becomes resistance and opposition. And I probably could just be a little bit kinder to myself to say, all right, you missed that one, but you're going to get right back on and get the next one. So yeah, I think I'm just being too hard on myself. And
Well,
it's also important to step back and, in the moment, it's a lot, right? When you're ready to break and you're just like, I can't go another step. You're dealing with all kinds of stuff, but you also have to remember that at some point you're going to step away from this and you're going to be recovered and comfortable and warm, and your legs are going to be fresh, and you're going to look back and say, yeah, I probably could have pushed more and further and harder. So trying to step out of the moment helps too.
I've got this new thought process I'm on, and it comes out of like you and I go out like in the morning, you put in a hard workout. The rest of your day feels good, right? You know what I mean? Like the harder that workout is, the better your day feels. Agreed?
Agreed.
So, and I think what's happening is your body is trying. I think of my body as like a scale, my mind, or whatever, or you push one way, now it's got to readjust. It's trying to get back to equilibrium. And because you push so hard to the difficult side, your mind ends up on the positive side the rest of the day, kind of like trying to balance itself out. It's the way I kind of think of things. And I've been wondering, so if I let myself just during the workout, just really hate myself, really get down, like you can't do this hill, you can't, you're such a whip, like I've been trying it lately, and I think I'm noticing I love myself more the rest of the day. It's a and I think of it as the same thing kind of thing happening. Like I don't let myself get down. Like I don't like it's only during this workout. Like and I feel like it's a mental workout too. Like I'm simulating like what I'm gonna feel and 90 miles in and last man standing next year. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's something to that. I think letting yourself feel your feelings is important, right? Like this sucks, and I'm gonna feel all of it. I'm not gonna ignore it or try to sugarcoat it. Probably helps you process it. I think you're very different in that regard than me. I'm actually so I think in images as well, and the one that I'm gonna attempt for this year is actually the opposite. When I went out this weekend and did a 30 miler, I've been trying to think of my brain as like a chimney and just letting all of the thoughts out of the chimney like a smokestack. Good thoughts, bad thoughts. Like I'm trying to just let all of those things go out of my head and not associate with any of them. So, you'll get into miles where uh, they're really hard and you're like, oh, this, I don't know if I got this. Like, and I just try to release all of those. But I also let the good ones go too. I learned from this past year of running that I was allowing myself to get really amped up and overconfident in a 5 mile stretch where you're just feeling it. Your pace is a breeze. You're like, I could run for 2 days like this.
Mhm.
But ultimately that changes and it sets you up for an expectation fall, or a gap where you're like, wait, what just happened? I was running great, now I feel like I can't even move. So my goal is to see if I can just release all of those thoughts. I don't know if it's the right answer, because a lot of the folks that we follow, they actually get themselves into the pain cave where it's dark and it's painful, and then they actually kind of like dig into it, where they're like, all right, I'm in the pain cave, let me enjoy being in this space. That just hasn't worked for me, so I'm going to try something different, which is like try not to even associate with it, and see if I can train my brain to just let those thoughts float up into the air, and see if that helps. It would be very different than what you're trying to accomplish.
It sounds like what Quinn talked about, like meditation wise, honestly.
Yeah, it's based in my experience with meditation, which is like, and I think for me, it's just I very much identify and associate with my thoughts. So if I'm having a bad day, it's because I got a brain full of bad thoughts. And if I'm having a great day, it's like nothing could go wrong, everything's great, this is going to go on forever. And both of those things are wrong for me. So trying to just have a kind of a pressure relief valve to let that stuff float away, because you can fall back on the fact that if I can just get outside of my head, my legs are fine. I know my legs can continue to run. So I'm playing around with that, and this past 30 miler actually I thought went pretty well in that regard.
And I actually do 100% agree with what you're saying, and that's actually what I do and will do. I'm thinking more workouts, and I'm adding in some hill stuff and some sprint stuff. Like that's when I'm pushing, trying to push myself, in the negative route that I'm talking about. But as far as like running and just being in the run, I absolutely am 100% like let it go, let your mind relax. I mean, how many times you feel this little twinge in your hip and you're like, is that something I need to just let it go? Like, and doing that with everything. And when I talked to Nate, I don't know if you heard any of that podcast, but he's a professional therapist, right? And he talked about, I was telling him, we were talking about meditation. It came up, and I talked about how I feel like I get my meditation during running, and he talked about how if somebody tells a traumatic story and you kind of have them visually like move their eyes left to right, it in theory helps things go from short-term memory to long-term memory. And he explained this much more eloquently than I will, and he said, if you think about running, you have constant stimulus on both sides of your brain. So you're running, and if your brain's in a relaxed state and it's going here, it's helping you process trauma, get things out. Like it's doing all those meditative things. And he's like, in that moment, he kind of like put that together, and it was kind of cool. But it makes sense, and I 100% agree. Just being in the moment, relaxing, letting the thoughts go, absolutely is a good strategy. I agree.
And it takes training, just like anything else. Like the ability to not associate with your thoughts and kind of release them. It's a constant battle, right? You'll be 3 minutes into a thought loop, and then you realize you're like, oh wait, I gotta let that one go, right? And you catch yourself, and the goal is to not stay in those thought loops for too long, to reduce that period of time. And you have to be intentional about it, because that's the thing, right? If you just go out and you do a run and it happens to be an easy run, are you learning anything? Are you learning that mechanism, because it was easy, that you got to be, at least for me, I'm still trying to let those go as well. And I'm going to play around with that more. I dabbled in it a little bit in this past year, and I think that's an area that I just need to focus on. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody needs to have something in their toolkit to get through a dark period. Would be my guess. Otherwise, you're just going to always succumb to the darkness. So some people dig into the darkness. They're like, all right, it's pitch black. I've got a shovel. I'm just going to keep digging, and that works for them. For me, I'm going to try to play around with some different tools to see what works. But that's in my opinion, that's the key. That's what's going to take you down, other than an injury, is your brain gets to a point where it just says, I'm done. I don't want to go anymore. And you got to figure a way to get through that.
Do you have a strategy for letting it go? It's easy to say just let it go, but I mean, like,
Just let it go.
like your mind's on something. Like, how do you have to get your mind onto something different? I don't know. I mean, I think I
I mean,
do have a strategy. I don't know if you do.
yeah, part of it is for me, this chimney concept is interesting. It's kind of like
Mm.
a physical mechanism to like watch the thoughts be released into the air. Um, and I don't know, I probably could research this. I don't know that replacing the thought with another thought is actually the right way to go. I think it's really just kind of truly letting it go. And part of that, I found you do need to have some level of confidence, right? So if the thought is you're tired, you're weak, you don't have any more miles left, I think you could quickly replace that by reminding yourself, like, I've got plenty of life left in my legs, and then just let it go. Um, but really just kind of disassociating. And you can do that not just during a run, you can do it during the day, right? If you're stuck on a task at work and it's dragging you down, you can find ways to let those thoughts go.
I think of it. I think of it as like a pre-game routine, right? Every athlete has a different pre-game routine that they do, and there's no right or wrong one. It's the one that makes them feel comfortable in that moment. You know what I mean? Like whether it's guys shooting foul shots and they have to rub their head 3 times and then shoot. Like, well, that's part of their routine. It gets that repetition. I think gets them into the right mind state to do what they're doing. So I think it's finding something and then sticking with it. For me, it's the which I think I've told you before. Like I tell myself I'm all right, and then I go through like a mental body check. Like my feet feel fine, my fingers are fine. Like I kind of go through my calves, my everything's fine. You're all right. You're good. And I've just kind of done an internal check, right? And then so that's put my mind on something, and then go back to relax. You're okay.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think there are things like that. For me, well, one little one that I do, two that I do. One is smiling. So I've heard from people just the physical act of smiling puts your body, in your mood in a better place. So there'll be times where I'm running, my head's down, I'm really struggling, and just putting a smile on my face and reminding myself, like, I like being out here, like I'm choosing to do this, right? So, breaking a cycle with a smile. The other one is breath work. I think is a big part of it. Andrew Huberman said that kind of resetting your nervous system with 2 short breaths in through your nose and 1 out through your mouth is like the best way to duplicate that. You're okay. Your body's in control. So breath work. Like if you have to stop and do 10 deep breaths and do breath work, it really kind of just resets. Like, yeah, you're running, but you're not running from a bear. You're okay. You're out here. You're not in fight or flight mode. So there's physical things that I think you can do to break some of those cycles if just releasing the thought isn't working. And you probably have to have maybe a dozen of those tricks. Like a systems check or smiling or different things. I try not to rely too much on things like music or external stimulators because I think those are artificial and you can't rely on them. But there's definitely tricks you can add to the toolkit.
If honestly, look at it, last man standing. The reason I got to 90 is because I was smiling. That so much of that, like so much of that, was just so enjoyable. Like
Yeah.
I'm blown away looking back on. I mean, I'll get to next year and be like, why the frig did I even like this?
Right.
But
Right. No, you'll love it.
no, it was. I mean, and we know so many more people now. Like I don't know. It's it was such an awesome experience, and just sharing that with you, like running with you and just chatting and just like, and then just the whole process of the whole thing, you doing your thing, my thing, like everything about it was just like it was enjoyable, even though I'm uncomfortable. Like I don't think I noticed how uncomfortable I was because I was enjoying it so much. There's
Yeah.
so many good little moments everywhere.
So I've given that some thought recently and I haven't executed on it yet, but I mean, the solo running that we're doing is extremely difficult. Just this past 30 miler, I was like, okay, I'm going out, I'm running 30 miles. I knew it was very achievable. I did it with very little effort, other than the last 5 miles were a bit of a grind, but it was only 30 miles. And in comparison to what I had just done the previous year, that 30 miles should have been easy, but you're out there by yourself. It was cold. And you have nothing but yourself and your thoughts. So I think this is good work that we're doing, but there's something to running in a community, you know, in an event structure that I'm sure, you know, we're lacking. So I started looking. I just unfortunately couldn't find one. There's a 100-miler in Turner, Maine, but it's sold out. It's in May. I was going to email you, but it's already a wait list. But I think if you could just get maybe 2 or 3 events on the calendar, I think the overall outcome for the year would be very different, just because of that experience that adds so much to it.
Also, I think about how, like I said, Last Man Stand was so enjoyable. There's like I'm almost not seeking enjoyable things though. You know what I mean? Like I don't do running to be enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like so I'm in my thing, in my pain cave. I do wish there was more on the calendar though. I mean I have thought about that, but I don't think it's necessary.
I will be more proud of a solo 100 miler, which I still plan to do, versus an event, for sure. But if you're thinking about, for me at least, just some longevity in the sport, the kind of dropping in a few just really enjoyable experiences versus just absolute grinds, even though the grind is something you're going to cherish a little bit more, just peppering in some lightness throughout the calendar might just make it, you know, when you look back, a little bit more enjoyable. But and it doesn't have to be enjoyable because we're out there to push our limits. But I do think mentally, like for me, it's like I almost don't want to wait until September to go out and experience that again. I'd like to kind of get that in a little bit earlier.
It's definitely something I talked about, somehow breaking it up, which is definitely like I sent you my kind of little plan. Like I've got a 3-month plan and I'll revisit and take, you know, just to mentally break it up instead of just this long, just keep grinding.
Right.
Yep. So
Your
go ahead.
Your 3-month plan is very aggressive.
Yeah.
You got a lot on that spreadsheet.
Yeah. We can talk about that a bit. But
all right.
So the month, so 13 by 31 ends, how your end of year. This was a rough time for me. How about you?
Oh, very rough. About as rough as it's been. I fell off the map in March of this past year. I was dealing with some personal stuff, and just I didn't put in the miles that month. But fast forward to the end of the year, I did very few miles November and December. So coming off of when I stopped running the 13 miles a day in October, I got really sick. I think my nervous system was shot and something was going around. Kids were getting sick and I got it, and that took me out for a couple of weeks. And then I was lifting with Jeffrey, and I had told him one of my plans for the winter was I wanted to, this is just me being, you know, ridiculous, but I wanted to run a sub 3.5 hour marathon and deadlift 405 on the same day. That was my goal for the winter because I wanted to do both, you know, a little bit faster paced marathon running plus some heavy lifting. So I started after I felt better, wasn't sick anymore. I was deadlifting heavy with him. And I've got this little lower back injury that pops up from time to time. Literally, I just kind of tweak my back and then I'm stiff for multiple weeks. So that took me out from running for another 2 weeks. So there was a stretch there in November that I wasn't running. I finally started to feel better towards Thanksgiving. That's when I went out for the marathon, but that was a grind. And then this past month in December, I just was super busy with work and just kind of decided I'm just gonna kind of let the year fade out on myself. But combination of getting sick and being injured, and I really, you know, struggled. And then everything else kind of struggles as well. Your work day, your confidence. So it was not the best way to finish the calendar year.
So looking back, hindsight, how could you how could you have addressed, you know, the same injury happens? How do you address this different? How do you make it I mean, I've had a similar experience this month. Different but similar challenges. Like, how do you make that a success?
Um, one thing that I need to do a better job of is, and I still haven't done it, but I need to sit down and really kind of decide on, what kind of athlete I'm going to be. Um, what ends up happening in this adventure that we're on is like everything seems possible. Like there's all these challenges that are exciting, and you watch other people on social media and folks that you admire that are doing all these crazy things, and you're like, oh, I could do that, or I could do that, and then my goals shift, and then I'm in these different pursuits, which can lead to injury or failure. And so I think what I need to kind of figure out is like, what kind of ultra runner do I want to be? What kind of athlete do I want to be? And then stick to a training program that is specific to that goal, and not, every 3 months change it. Like, okay, I'm going to get super strong in the gym now, or I'm going to, try and be a fast marathon runner. So part of it is just being consistent, right? I mean, if we're going to have longevity in the sport, I think you got to, it doesn't mean that you don't take on challenges and change it up from time to time, but I think I just need to be very specific about what my training objectives are, and then plan my day around that. Because when I got injured, then the question became was, do I deviate from my goal, or just kind of throw it away and try and go back to what I was doing before, or do I push through? And then that ended up just being kind of confused and not very productive. I will say though, to answer your question another way, I was in a funk because nobody likes being sick and injured when they like being active. I think I handled it a little bit better than I have in the past. I didn't let it get on top of me. I knew the injury was going to go away. I knew I was going to feel better at some point. I knew I had the whole winter to stay on top of my goals. So partially I was just patient with it, which actually helped.
And doesn't, I mean, don't you think it, I don't know, for me, it makes me miss, like, I miss running. Like, I'm aware that, like, it's something,
Yeah,
as much as I could say I don't like it,
I
like,
know.
when I don't have it, it's like, damn, I miss it.
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
and
it,
you
so
miss it because you don't necessarily love it, but you miss the value that it's bringing to your life, right? I mean, even though the exercise itself sucks, you miss, like, when I get a run done in the day in the morning, and it's the rest of my day is great, right? So you miss that aspect of it. You miss how you feel. You miss falling asleep at night being like, I drained the rag, so it does provide a lot of structure. It doesn't have to be crazy 13 miles every single day, but having that structure and discipline really adds value to the rest of your day.
without a doubt, and I do, and after those times, I think if I could be aware of that in the moment, like, I'm in this funk, it's like, okay, you're gonna miss this. It's gonna be the stretch. Still put in the work where you can.
Yeah,
And find, try to maintain as best you can in whatever situation it is. Make the best of this situation. It's gonna be over, and then when you're done, you're gonna be reinvigorated. And just
that's
knowing
right.
that happens, and trying to
Yeah,
shorten up that period of the funk, like, stop the landslide that's happening.
yeah, yep. That's something I know I got better at in 2022. The landslide still comes. It feels like there's this resistance that's keeping you from doing what you want to do. But being able to just, and it's like anything, the more you do something, you pick up patterns. You're like, yeah, okay, this is a funk. It's gonna end. I'm gonna be excited to get back on the road. And just like little things, how, like, when you're in the grind, just going and putting on your shoes is like this big Herculean effort mentally. But when I wasn't running and I actually got back to running, the prep before a run is actually really enjoyable. Like, I love putting my gear on, like, thinking about my route, going out, and I got this little, uh, shelf where my shoes sit, and I get to go in and pick out which Atreyu shoe I'm going to run in that day. I've got my my rainy day shoe. I've got my long distance shoe. I've got my all purpose shoe. And just that experience, like, I forgot how much I enjoyed that, putting on okay, how much water do I need? Or what kind of gloves do I need? And, you got to kind of take victories in those little joys that you forget about, that, become a task when you're tired. And so just having that mental perspective is very helpful.
I do think next year, I think our bodies need, just like our bodies kind of both broke down towards the end of the year. I think our minds need that reset too, in a way, like, and kind of being aware of that and almost planning that in towards the end of the year. Like, it's such a long way till September. I can let myself back off a little bit. I can, I mean, maybe planning in some of that stuff to let myself know I need that recovery, both mentally and physically.
Yeah, I think and scheduling that in is probably smart. You know, if you're going to do October 13 miles a day, you know, maybe there's a week in there around Thanksgiving or something that you can just put on the calendar to say, like, I'm gonna give myself a vacation here. Is probably very beneficial. Whereas I think we've just been kind of like constantly moving to the next objective. So it's like anything, you to reduce the risk of burnout, you got to plan some real rest in there, which I think would be productive. I'm not good at that.
Yeah, neither am I. So I had a different experience in that I finished 13 by 31 and felt good. Like I felt like I could have kept going. I mean, I was happy to be done with the grind, because it's your ultimate. You're very aware that you're just not resting at all. There's just no days off, and that's definitely a mental struggle, being aware of that. But I got out of the month, and I'm like, and I have Millinocket coming up, so I'm like, I'm gonna do marathon training, which was such a cool thing for me, because I don't do hill. I've told myself for years I need to do more hills and more sprinting, and I don't do it. And so I just grabbed the marathon training plan, kind of the last month of it, and just did it. And it was a cool experience. Those are hard runs, like pushing pace, like intentionally pushing and trying to hit pace goals in a run. It was a cool. I was pumped that, like, I was hitting those paces and making those paces that this training plan was telling me I should be making. So I come out of this 400-mile month, 13 by 31. I'm crushing the marathon training, and if anything, it feels like, honestly, if the workouts were hard, but it felt like I was an easy month. I mean, it's like I'm only running 6 miles today, even though they're brutal 6 miles. It's like, man, this is, what am I gonna do with the rest of the extra 3 hours I just gained?
Right.
I went into Millinocket feeling like my shit didn't stink.
Yeah.
I was so confident, and I got humiliated. I've never been broke. I've never been more humbled in my life. Honestly, like, I was like, screw running. I'm done. I hate this.
You've said that multiple times in Millinocket now.
My, I Nate was kind of telling. He's like, you should do the Maine marathon. It's such an easy. I looked at the elevation difference. It's like, no wonder Millinocket is a hard race. I mean, it's cold. There's a lot of things that are hard about it. It's just brutally hilly, and so there's a lot of reasons why it isn't the place to be trying to put up your best pace. But we talked about mental changes. I was so down on myself. I recorded the video, like a post race review, and in it I said something like, towards the end, I'm like, I've been so humbled. I'm like, but isn't that the point? And it was like, that was such a mental change for me right there. Like, that is the freaking point. Like, I thought I was all this. Like, I'm nothing. Like, I don't, like, I let the, like you were talking about before, I let the high get way too high. I put up like, I'm like, I can run. I just proved to myself this month I can run at pace, and I can do everything I'm supposed to do. I can run miles. I'm gonna crush this race, and just to have the wheels fall off like it did, and in a different way than it has before. In the past, it's been like, it feels like my joints aren't handling it or whatever. This was just completely ran out of gas. Just it fell apart. Like, my body could hit. I don't know. It was humbling on such a, but like I said, that is the point. And I feel like I learned so much about that. Like, yeah, I'm nothing special as a runner. I'm just do you, be you, and this is part of the process.
Where did it fall apart for you? Was it the entire race, or was there a mile marker?
yeah. So I just I went into the race like I want to run a fast pace, but I want to stay comfortable. Stay what feels comfortable. Don't push out of your comfort zone. Just stay comfortable. And literally the first 6 miles is uphill, literally the entire way, and then it's rolling hills on the way back. So even though you're coming back downhill, you're getting as much up as down. So the first half, I'm running with this guy. Him and I are cruising. I averaged a 7:44 pace. Um, and it felt easy, JT. I mean,
Yeah.
I look back, like my half marathon puts me like top 6 of people that just ran in my age group.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
age group, top 6 of the people just running the half marathon. So I'm feeling awesome. I turn the corner for the second loop, and it's like, and I've been doing the math in my head. This is, I should have learned from you. Like, setting expectations is such a problem. Um, my goal was to go out and I wanted an 8:30 was my overall goal average pace. So I'm like, if I can go out, do the first half in 8 minutes and do the second half in like 9, which felt totally doable, then
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the 8:30. So that was kind of what I was thinking. And then I did a 7:44. I'm like, holy crap, I got this. And I turn the corner and you start the hill, and by the time I get to the top of the first like rise, I was a full blown panic attack. I,
I know how that feels.
I could feel my my heart rate picking up. I could feel all of a sudden my legs felt tired. The length that I had to do, knowing what I had in front of me, it just all overwhelmed me. I mean, and it was, I could feel it like building up, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't get control of it. I actually, like, there was a porta potty at the top, and I hit the porta potty, and I went there. I took a piss, and I'm like, I took a moment, like
Yeah.
I'm like, just go out and jog it, like just go out and feel comfortable. Like I had, but it took me probably a minute, if not like forever, that I had to like just reassess.
Right. Real quick, just is it a 13-mile loop and then you do it twice? Okay. Well, that's brutal because you mentally have to go back and do what you just did. So that's tough. But the panic attack, what do you think that was? I mean, it wasn't just biological, I would imagine.
Setting expectations and not meeting them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
I,
were you thinking like I've done all of this work, like I crushed 2022 and here I am struggling with this marathon?
all of that. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and I can't even tell you how easy that half marathon felt.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
honestly, like as I'm coming down the last stretch and it's flat, and it's like that was the easiest half marathon I've ever run. Like to do a 7:44, and I felt like if I was pushing, I could have done a 7-minute flat. I mean, the way it felt, I mean, it was just like, and to turn the corner and just have it, it just came so fast. How fast
Yeah.
it fell apart. And I
Yeah.
knew the steepest hill is like that first hill when you turn the corner, which that isn't a really long hill. And I'm like, okay, just chug up this hill, and then you hit another rise, and it's just, I did that chug and my heart rate didn't come back down. Just it fell apart, and then I couldn't. And the rest of the race, I couldn't ever get into a comfortable groove. I I got really down on myself. Like it was just, why am I doing this? Just everything, and I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
huge resistance, and getting out of it is very difficult. And I think that's probably the key there.
I mean I don't train for that. I mean I don't know why. Like I thought, like I feel like I tried to cheat my way into running a fast marathon. Like you said, like am I training for fast marathons, or am I training for last man standing? Am I training for deadlifts, or am I training for, like picking a lane? And I think I've realized like that's, I mean I want to keep improving at marathon, um and trying it just as a test to see where I'm at, but that's not what I train for. Like I'm running with guys that like that's what they train. This is their thing. Like this is what they
Yeah.
do, and this isn't
Right.
my thing. This isn't my goal. And I enjoy like the ultra is so much more. So it's like I need to just reduce the expectations. Um, but it would, but I was humbled like that. But I'm like, isn't that part of the goal too? Isn't that part of
Yeah.
being humbled is a good place to be?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, so why not just keep pushing, setting expectations that are unrealistic and let myself be humbled? I don't know. Maybe that actually is something I should shoot for. I don't know.
Yeah. As long as you can keep it productive. I mean, I think being humbled on the road is very valuable, as long as it then doesn't lead to an unnecessary funk, or letting negative thoughts creep in and stay there. So you can just acknowledge it for what it was, be humbled, have that experience, and then you remind yourself like you can continue to do more work.
Yeah. So then the rest of my year fell apart. Just
So that would be the problem, right? I mean, it's good to be humbled and have that experience, but if it leads to like losing a month, that's a challenge.
and I don't know if I mean this little injury that I dealt with just before last man standing, and I had it going into like Millinocket, like it just wasn't going away, but I could run on it, and I don't think I'm well. I have strategies now to make that better, and it's already much better. But so I had that, and just like tired of the whole. I don't know. I just mentally got into a funk, into a bad place, and I just let my. I overate. I ate like crap. I like everything I don't normally do. I was like, you know what, like I felt like I mentally needed a rest, and then I just let the wheels go off.
Yeah, which is probably why planning for the rest is better.
Yep.
Like, I mean, maybe it's the first 2 weeks of December where you like intentionally let that slide, and so you don't beat yourself up about it. I mean, we do need to consider intentional rests, because I don't feel like I get any rest out of a funk. I'm just like in a bad mood. I'm not exercising. I'm not even taking advantage of it. I'm not even enjoying it. That's the other problem, right? Where you're like, you're eating bad, you're not working out, and you're like mad at yourself, as opposed to like planning for it, enjoying it, and then saying, all right, that was my break. Now I'm getting back on it. I think I could do a much better job of that.
And another thing that I definitely think I am because I let myself get so kind of down. And it's been a while since I've got that like just that slothy. um, uh, I I did feel like absolute crap the entire time. My stomach feels like crap, so I'm gonna put more food into my mouth. Like just and then as soon as I get back into the grind, as soon as I finally get back on schedule, it's like I feel great again. Like that that's just that's so mentally bad to be in that spot. Like there's no benefit, but being aware that's being more aware of that. I think the more and more I'm aware of that, it's like I am better when I'm doing this. I feel better
Yeah,
I emotionally better. Everything feels better when I'm doing this, and everything
yeah,
feels worse when I'm doing this.
yeah,
Just being aware of that. Like as soon as I think maybe the next time I'm getting into a funk, I'm gonna be. I would hope I'd be more aware of that.
yeah, yeah. And that's actually a fairly decent answer for when people ask, why are you doing this, right? I mean, if you, over the course of 2 years, if you look at it, it's like, when I'm comfortable, right, when I'm not exercising and I'm eating whatever I want and I'm being lazy, right, which is just being comfortable, I feel terrible. When I stop, have a abrupt departure from that, and I get back into my discomfort where I'm pushing every day, I'm being disciplined with what I eat and how I eat it and when I eat it, that discomfort, I feel significantly better. Like, it's not even a comparison. It's like significantly better. So if for no other reason,
Yes.
like that's why we do this, right? That's one of the reasons why we do this. It looks like, if you were to be an observer outside saying, okay, he's running 2 hours in the morning, he's not eating until 3 p.m. He's tired. His legs are sore. How do you feel? You're like, I feel amazing. This is what I want to be doing. Versus like the cookies and the Netflix binges and all that stuff. It's not even a comparison. So, and the more you do that, the more you break that cycle, the more you realize like you're not sacrificing anything, you're gaining by having this disciplined, productive lifestyle.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's it's shocking the difference in how I feel. Like I think maybe it's because I hadn't been that low in such a long time that just to experience that, and yeah, it's like night and day. Like I don't even know the words to put to like how crappy I felt. And it wasn't even like, it's not because I'm not achieving my goal. I wasn't even down on myself during that time. It's just like I just didn't feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, and my bigger thing is it just impacts so many other aspects of your life, right? Like you're potentially a little bit more grouchy with your kids. For me, I get very distracted easily, where my day just kind of doesn't have any structure to it. And so just menial tasks then become this huge chore. So there's like all these other follow on benefits to having structure and discipline in whatever form you choose to make that structure and discipline. I mean, it could be getting up and just stretching for 30 minutes that day and eating healthy. Our structure and discipline is quite aggressive, but it adds so much value to the day, and to the point where, so I probably like you, I cleaned it up in January, right? We're 2 weeks in, feel great again. I am gonna try to. There's a few things I want to stay a little bit more disciplined on consistently. Maybe plan some rest in there so that I can just let it go if I want to. But I really want to be more consistent for this year, just so I don't run the risk of getting into that funk where I don't even like how I feel right now.
Yeah. So number one, I started 3 or 4 days before January 1st
Yeah.
because Hayden, who I think is quoting Goggins or somebody, but like, why not today? Like, why wait? Why not today? So I was like, okay, I'm not waiting. I'm doing it. So like, I'm breaking through that barrier.
Yeah.
Um,
Good for you.
yeah, yeah. So that was my first big thing. And then a lot of like, you and I, it actually started with you and I, like just talking about, what is an optimal day? And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I've heard, like, I've been training by feel. Like I kind of have a goal for I want for the week, and I'm, and I'm, pushing and pull, depending on what, without any real structure, I guess. I haven't, just kind of like last year, like I said, was just as many miles as I can do. And I'm like, you know what? Let's put this on paper, what I think, and let's go out. Let's try to be optimal. Let's make it happen. Let's try to, and just that experience, just doing that, just the process of doing it, and having something on paper that I'm kind of checking myself by, has actually been kind of cool. I'm wondering how it all plays out. Is it too aggressive? And then how do I let myself off when I'm not hitting those numbers and stuff like that? Like I haven't had to address that quite yet, but just having something that I'm accountable to is, I think that is a good thing, or at least kind of what I'm aiming for. Yeah. It's going to make me do things I wouldn't normally do if I'm just
Right.
going by feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that definitely helps. Your plan looks very aggressive to me. So, and not even just in the miles, but I mean, it's very prescriptive. And you had a lot of like auxiliary stuff in there, throughout the day, like 100 push-ups or 100 sit-ups, or different little things to do throughout the day. And it's great. I mean, to put that on paper and to try to do it. I am curious to see how it goes for you.
So let's just talk about, I'm all right. My thinking first. So last man standing, my thighs, my quads, um, definitely got super tired. We're not able to handle the hills, the ups and downs. Like that's mostly the downs. My quads definitely got. That's the one. If there's a muscle group that felt weak, that was definitely it. So I'm like, I have to address this year. It needs to get stronger, and I haven't been doing the weight training that you have been. I'm like, that absolutely has to change. If I want to go further, so I'm like, okay, that needs to be addressed, and um my little knee injury, which comes from, after talking to Jeff a bunch, it comes from the glutes, the outside of the glutes, like that muscle being weak. um
Mhm.
and then then it affects the inside of the knee. So I'm like, okay, I need to address that. And then I think our idea of running on tired legs is huge. Like that has to, the 30-20 though, I don't think needs to happen as much if you can replicate that in other ways, which just in this last week, the weightlifting, adding in the weights gets me to that same kind of feeling of the back to back, that 30-20, just running on tired legs. So I feel like I'm accomplishing that. Yeah. So that was kind of my thought going into like, okay, let's make a plan for this. And then, I mean, I have my kind of chunks of time that can fit into my schedule. So I just started filling it out and see what happens. Like I said, I'm considering this as my off season. So I'm doing more swimming, which just, if anything, swimming is my place where I get my high max heart rate, where I'm pushing pretty hard in the swimming and get my heart rate really up. And that's the one place I get that. I've scheduled in hill runs, hill repeats, which I don't know if you've done that. It's amazing.
Once.
It honestly is my favorite work. The first time I did it, I posted something on it, and Jason Giroux goes right back, I love hill repeats. I'm like, he's such a dick.
Yeah.
I've done it now a couple times and I love it. Like I have the biggest hill around and I just go to it and I try to push as hard as I can up it and jog down and then hard and just do that for an hour. It's awesome.
Yeah. What is the mileage and how many laps would you be doing in an hour?
You mean on the hill or just in general?
Like how long is the hill?
So yes. So this hill, the first time I did it, I actually had like it was just 2 minute up the hill. It was just run up 2 minutes as hard as you can and then turn back down. Yeah. And it literally, I could get to the very top of the hill. Like if I pushed my hardest on the first run, I could get to the top. So it's about a 2-minute hill.
So you're probably doing, I don't know, 20 hills in an hour.
Oh, I don't think it's that many. This hill is stupid steep.
Okay.
And your body feels it.
Yeah.
And it's more like I'll push that first one, and then it's like, okay, now you need to find a pace that you can kind of just get up it.
Yeah.
But it's not only is there benefit of the uphill, but then the downhill stuff I was talking about. Like you're coming back down a steep hill, and I was practicing going backwards, which that is going to be part of my strategy. But
absolutely.
So there's that, and then in sprints, like I got to add in sprints. So like I'm a sprint workout at the end of the week for sure. There's two things I know I've needed to do, and if I don't schedule them in, they're never going to happen. So, but then the other thing that I'm totally focused on just time spent running. I'm not. I mean, I'm aware of my mileage, but I'm not. I was so focused on that stupid number. Like, did I get to 100 this week? Who cares if I get to 95?
Right.
Like, just run. And I've noticed adding in the more weightlifting and then and I hit that hill. I have that on Monday specifically because then my legs are just shot and I'm running on tired legs the rest of the week. But I'm not worried about mileage. I'm just running on them, and I think I'm going to enjoy that part of running more because I'm not focused on this distance. And I literally have I set a little workout on which I'll just say an hour and a half run. Like I start it and all I see is my countdown for the time.
Nice.
And I gotta say, Jason was doing on his treadmill the lunges with a weighted vest, and Evan got me a weighted vest for Christmas, and I did an hour lunge Monday. So Monday I'm doing an hour of lunges uphill, and then I got my hill repeats that day, and my body was crushed for the rest of the week. But I feel like that was I'm like, this is everything I wanted. This is where I want my body to feel. Yeah.
That's good. You do an hour, you do lunges straight for an hour with a weighted vest?
Well, I got to jog back down the hill. But yeah. And it was the first time I did it. And I was worried because I had this groin injury, which was it was one of the most painful injuries I've had, and it would literally happen in the middle of doing nothing. Like,
Yeah.
like I mean, literally in the like in a month of doing nothing, that's when I get my groin injury. Doing nothing, like I just woke up with it, kind of thing. Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So, but I feel like that's mostly behind me. I was a little nervous trying to. So this is all my plan, and I'm like, I have this groin injury. I'm gonna go do lunges for an hour with a weighted vest. Let's try that out. It's stupid, but I got through it, and now my confidence is through the roof. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I can't tell my. So I gotta say, even now, it's been what is this? Today's what day is today? Thursday.
Well, yeah, Thursday.
My quads are still sore from that.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, these are the muscles I want to be stronger for last man standing.
Yeah.
I'm hitting it.
Right. Good.
So when you look at your, if you look at your last man standing weaknesses that you notice, obviously the mental stuff, which is always a challenge, but like, is there something that you need to target or something you haven't been doing enough of? And how do you get better at that? And what's your plan for this year?
Yeah, so specific to last man standing, I'm still convinced it's a diet issue. So that's my big goal for this year is to figure out what race day nutrition plan looks like, and I've got to, play around with that with some prior events to make sure that I've got a solid nutrition plan that doesn't take me out of the race. I'm convinced that's what it is. So that's one of the things I'm going to work on this year, which is that the other part of consistency for the year is I really want to be a low carb runner. I mean, that's my lifestyle, and I need to figure out I can live low carb through the week and do small workouts, 10 miles, 15 miles, no problem. But I need to be able to make sure that that same lifestyle works on a 100-mile run, and just being consistent with that, because again, looking back on this past year, I would live low carb and then I would introduce a significant amount of carbs on race day, and I just don't think that's working for me. So I need to go to work on that. Mechanically, I didn't see anything in last man standing that I needed to work on, other than just changing some lessons learned, the hills, walking backwards, and pace and planning and all those things. I think we'll have had the experience to do. So for me, it's really this one of my major objectives for this year is really just kind of keeping a very consistent diet plan. I know what I like, for the week, how I eat, when I eat, what I eat, but making sure that that's working for me on race day is a huge objective. And then just as far as training, I don't think I've gotten any farther than, April, kind of like you, like March, April timeframe. Last winter, I remember putting in some of my biggest mile months. I was doing 300 miles in January, that kind of thing. I don't expect to do that this year. The major change that I'm going to do for this year and see how it works is, I just want to do a lot more long runs and not really worry about the training plan during the week. I probably could be a little bit more structured with it, but I mean, I'm thinking like no more than 5 miles a day, Monday through Friday, and then, hit consistently long runs on the weekends, whether that's 30-20s or planning up to a 50 miler, or, kind of no less than 20. But just getting in the habit of just building my training plan around long runs and having way more flexibility during the week to either take a day off or to just do short, like a 5-mile run is more of a therapeutic run for me at this point. I think it might do two things. One, I did struggle with kind of just work balance and, running. There was days when I just would rather be working, and this schedule allows me to, like, hey, if I just can't get the run in today because I got a busy work day or the kids or something, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to really do my work on the long run when I have that scheduled. So that's going to greatly reduce the miles, right? Because if you do 5 miles a day, Monday through Friday, and then a 25 miler on the weekend, that's only 50 miles for the week. But that's okay. That's kind of, I'm going to see how that works for me. So my months might look like 150 miles for the month, or, a little bit more or less. But if I get at least a 50 miler in every month and multiple 25s or 30s, then that's my goal, and I'll see how that makes me feel long term. Because the other thing I want to do on top of that is I do really want to stay active in strength training through the winter and into the summer. I've been having a blast with Jeffrey, working out with him. He's hitting monster goals, like doing just an amazing job. So being there, being able to be there from 5:30 to 7 every day, hitting different muscle groups, is just enjoyable for me. But I think it also adds that strength training and that resiliency to your running plan. So I'm going to do that for the rest of the winter. I've got some big mile goals. Like I have a couple of 50 milers and different things planned in my head. But the rest of the week is going to be more by feel. I'm just going to see how that works for me.
I mean, I think we're approaching it two different ways, but I think I am in complete agreement with the high mileage doesn't have to happen. I mean, I do think, like I said, I think I will go back to like a 13 by 31, like pushing a 400-mile month just more for the confidence of it. But I think what we did last year, like I did 3,600 miles, but I feel like you easily could have handled, if schedule wise and stuff like that. Like you and I both accomplished the miles we have. Like I think I needed to have that year to be confident that my body literally can handle this mileage. Now I know for a fact this is all between the ears. You know what I mean? Like this race, success in this race is between the ears, and that's where it's won and lost. You just need the minimum requirement of physical fitness, and our bodies have already done that. So I completely agree. Like, and I think my mileage is gonna look a lot like yours too. Like it'll be 150, maybe 200 on a big, if I have a couple bigger runs at the end of the month.
Yeah. And looking back on this past year, I'm glad we did it. I learned a lot. I know where my weaknesses are, but I don't think those consecutive 300-mile months made me a better runner. I really don't. Like I think it accomplished different goals, and like you said, give you confidence. It makes you kind of learn how your body handles stress. But I don't think I'm better off now to tackle a 100+ miler than I was before, mechanically, because we were just grinding so hard. So now it's kind of more like I want to do a 50-mile run and be able to really like analyze it for what it is, not just as a grind on the end of a really hard week. So, that's like going into a long run with a good nutrition plan, hydration plan, working through, mechanical issues. So that's kind of it is a little bit more performance oriented this year, to see if that helps or changes anything.
No, I mean, just as an example, that the hill repeats, I'm not putting up much mileage, but I feel like I've gained so much. Like in that hour, I feel like I've gained, what I get on a 40-mile run. You know what I mean? Like I feel real gains there, and I feel the same thing with the sprints. A little less with the sprints and stuff, but I know that that's just part of a muscle group I need to be developing, just to have. But yeah, more specific. I don't know what the right word is, but yes. Yeah. So I want to ask you. Go ahead.
Well, just to forecast a little bit, because I've already, I went into January with this idea, like, hey, just do a 30-miler every weekend, and don't worry too much about the midweek stuff. And I was like, oh, that's so easy because it's less miles, less time on the road. But then you go and you try to do a 30-miler on a Saturday, and you forget how much that sucks your day down, right? Not only is it's 4.5 hours, but the recovery afterwards. I mean, you're pretty shot, so. And then you have plans on the weekend, right? So I'm going skiing this Saturday, so I'm not going to do a long run that Saturday. So I got to be conscious about not just letting a weekend slip, and say, okay, well, I'll get it next weekend. Like you do have to be a little bit more, intentional about it.
Right. Yeah. So the nutrition thing, that's honestly I don't know how you train for that though. I mean, obviously, like if you do a couple, you get some really long runs, but you're training for. I mean, if you think about it, your nutrition plan didn't start affecting you until it did at 90 miles, right? I mean, up to that point, you had no issues. Like
Yep.
you were eating, everything was working fine. So like, how do you replicate that far out when your body's that stressed that far? Like, I don't know how you, besides getting back there and putting in 90 miles, which you're not going to do that very often.
No, but I think I just need to get back there once or twice. And I think post 50 miles, you can kind of tell. This is the hypothesis that I'm going off of. Like I didn't my 30 miler this weekend, I didn't eat. I ran the entire thing fasted, right? So because I don't feel like adding fuel during the race is necessary. So I couldn't tell if certain fuels would help me or hurt me. It's not a long enough period of time to feel the effects. But I know how I felt when I had a bad nutrition plan. So if I can go into a 50 plus miler in the next couple of months and be consuming the fuels that I think are going to be good for me and not have that nutrition related kind of bonk. I mean, if it's just a bad run and my legs are tired, that's fine. But I had this wall that I kept hitting. If I can not hit that wall, then I'll assume that the nutrition is working for me and just stick with it. But you're right, I'm gonna have to put myself on that on the road in that situation where what's gonna work, fat or glucose, right? And you won't know that until you're 10 plus hours into a run.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, I as you know from my plan, like I'm not eating till 3 o'clock. I've pretty much every day I'm doing 3 hours of exercise fasted. I feel like I'm at my best training wise. I enjoy how it feels. Everything about it is I do literally feel like this is my optimal day. Like as far as like as an eating schedule, and I don't know how to work. I don't know how to train for food. I honestly don't. But I know like as we're looking to push that at some point, you can't fast at some point. Like if you're running fasted, at some point there's not enough. You're running out of fuel.
That's right. Yeah.
And how to plan for because I mean I'd love to be at 150 miles and be like, let's keep going. I'd love to be at 200, 300. You know what I mean? Whatever.
Right.
I'm talking ridiculous numbers that are not going to happen. But
right.
It's like, but if I'm not fueling, but those aren't even possible if I'm not doing some kind of fueling, right? So like, but how do I train that? How do I know? I don't know. It's something I struggle with, and I'm not, and there isn't an answer out there that anybody has.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, Zach Bitters and guys out there that run like this. My biggest thing is just race day. I just didn't even have the fuel.
But Zach's not doing last man standing. It really is a different type of race, though. You know what I mean? Than the like, running 100 miles straight. It's a different, because there is time to digest, and then but there's
For me, I mean, like last man standing, the work that I didn't do and the work that I can do, if you're talking about like training for nutrition, is I wouldn't even have known what fat-based fuel sources were available to me on race day, because I just grabbed the gels and the goos and the liquid calories, which are all sugar-based, at least what I was gravitating towards, and they are predominantly sugar-based. So part of this is just, so 30 miles is when I start to need fuel. Like I could fuel before that, but I can run 30 miles, no fuel, no problem. But starting to reach out at mile 20 with I don't know what it's going to be: almond butter, coconut oil, a cheeseburger with no bun. That's the stuff that I got to figure out, and I can start to do that on my 30 to 50 mile. Just like, how do you consume a pound of ground beef during an ultra run? Like, I don't know, and what, if not that, well, then what's the substitute? But that is like, I got to do that work this year. And a little bit more scientifically, because there's a certain amount of carbs that you can take, but it's got to be like, okay, no more than 15 grams in an hour, or, something to that effect. So maybe it's a banana 1 hour, and then, a scoop of peanut butter the next hour, or something like that.
And I think part of it, so here's don't do new things on race day, right? Is what everybody
Yeah.
says. And that's, yes, I 100% agree. Like, how do you train? Like, I am running on empty all the time. How do I train? How do I know what's going to feel like in my belly? Digesting while running. You know what I mean? Like, because that's actually, I think, one of the huge places where people go wrong, and I definitely have in the past. It's just, what can I? Those stupid gels, as hard as they are to get down, and I don't like them. They don't mess up my belly at all. And I'm picturing ground beef in my belly, and I'm trying to digest, but your body's not at a point where it's like wants to digest. Like, so then it makes me think, well, then I have to train with ground beef or whatever it is in my belly. That How do I do that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, sure, just
and that's
eat,
where,
but then I'm not on my what I feel good at. Like I'm not sure.
yeah, and that's where I just feel like simulating the race event a little bit more, accurately is going to be helpful, right? So taking that Saturday, planning it once a month, taking that Saturday and saying, all right, I'm going to do 50 miles. And the objective of this is to figure out a nutrition plan. And if you can figure it out at 50 and it's working, then you're at least better off going into 100 miles plus that you've got at least a plan in place. I mean, I'm okay if the plan fails, but I want to have a plan.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And when you're at 30 or 20, whenever you start like putting in calories and actually kind of keeping in mind, like every hour, let's eat something, or every half hour, or whatever your thinking is, just to have that in my belly and then run and see what that feels like in my stomach while you're running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big, that's something I'm going to focus on this year. And just being more consistent and disciplined with it. So I'll go into the summer kind of deciding if I'm going to, be running the last man standing low carb, or if need to have a different plan. That would be beneficial.
Let's do the thing we shouldn't do, and we both know better than. But like, do you have like goals for last man standing? Like, I know we don't want to set a number because then you said it, but I have ideas.
Minimum 100. I mean, I don't mind putting that out there in the air. As much as that was the highlight of the year. I loved the event. Very proud of it. It was just really an enjoyable experience beginning to end. But not hitting 100 is not okay. So, that is absolutely the goal. But I also don't want to stop because I've achieved a number, right? I mean, I want to do the work so that nothing takes me out of the race other than not being able to take another step. I mean, that's the goal for last man standing, right? So I don't want diet to take me out of the race. I don't want an injury to take me out of the race. And I don't want an arbitrary 24-hour time limit to take me out of the race either. So I don't know what that number is, but I want it to be, leaving it all on the fields. That's the goal every time.
Do you think's a realistic number though? Like, what's
knowing what I know now?
Go ahead.
I'm 125. Going into the nighttime of the second day, I think is very doable based on what I've learned this past year and what I can accomplish this year if I put some things together. That wouldn't seem like a unreasonable goal.
That's literally where I kind of land on. Like, I'm like, I feel like 100 is absolutely achievable. And then I feel like I can get, like, I'd like to get to nighttime, the second night. Yeah. And then my thought is tiredness I can't replicate. I don't know how I'll be. I know how the struggle just that first night was in last man standing. Even though it was all enjoyable, like for me, I'm mentally weak when I'm that tired, when I'm tired. And if I can get to the night, I'd be pumped.
Yeah. The thing that's encouraging is that the limits keep expanding, right? So going into last man standing, I was pretty confident in 100, and it seems achievable in my head. But anything beyond that seems like if I had hit 100, I would have stopped, because I would have been like so happy and I'm like, yeah, this is my limit. Going into this year, that limit, like I actually could like running 36 hours makes sense to me at this point. If I can line everything up, running 48 hours does not make sense to me right now. But at some point, maybe in 2024, that will, right? So that's the goal. You just kind of keep pushing to the point where both you and I remember saying multiple times, like 100 miles just does not seem feasible or doable. And we have the exact opposite answer today, right? So that's the goal. You just keep getting yourself to a point where like, okay, now I see what 150 could look like. So yeah, I want to, and I also just remembered like the pull. There was a pull at Last Man Standing because I had to get the kids that day, and it was a sunny day. And you probably had a similar pull because you're like, all right, my family's here, Jeff's done. I got to eliminate that pull, right? So, just as simple as literally clearing 48 hours off your calendar. We're like, hey, sorry, family, but you don't have any expectations of me. Because then it would be like, oh, well, I probably should go, check out at this point. So little things like that are going to help you get a little bit further.
Yep, I'm already planning to spend the next night there.
Yeah,
like I'm gonna sleep there the next night. Like I'm gonna have a sleeping bag.
That's a great
like,
point.
Yep, just like that's where I'm ending. So like it doesn't matter when I finish. That's where it's ending, and nothing's. Yeah, that pull for sure was an unexpected pull. I wasn't ready for that.
Yep. Yeah.
I think so. Like, so like outside range of like what I really like would blow me away. Okay, so that Jason told me that the direction we're about to go this year is the harder of the two.
I don't like that. I don't want to acknowledge that, but go ahead.
There's just been less people doing 100 in that direction than the other way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it being that much harder. Honestly, like I don't think that's. Yeah, it's its own challenge, but so like an outside goal that I think you and I could hit, kind of like so like our outside goal was 100 this last year. I think the record on the course, the longest is like 132, right?
I guess, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think that's the longest anybody's gone.
Yeah.
To hit that or go past it, even if I'm in 10th place and I got past that, which I don't care about the place, even though that is cool to be top 10, top 5, whatever. But I think that's like an outside, like if I got to the second night, like let's say I get to the second night, and I'm like, okay, what's the next tier that I'm trying to make? Like that would be a tier I'm looking at, like, because it'd be cool to be like, I outdid everybody that's ever on the harder year, the harder direction, past anybody in the past has ever done. I just passed that, or I made it to that. So like that would be a really cool thing. Like
that would be cool.
yeah, that's because
that's like 8 p.m. something like that the next day.
I think so.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely headlamps on.
Yeah, it definitely feels like in the range. Now, I mean, you look at some of the runners, like it's been kind of humiliating, like having Chase on, who was looking at Moab 240. So he was just doing it as a training run. So he stopped at 100 because it was just training run. We have Jason, but what's his name? Begonia, right? Who we helped out and he stopped. Well, then he does, the world championships and goes 200 plus miles. You have Ed, who's never found his limit.
Yeah.
We get Jason Giroux, who's his own monster. Like
easily got 100. Yeah.
Yeah. Like my thoughts. I mean, I know you've put out there, like, I want to win this thing. My thoughts on winning this is just not like, I'm not at that level, to be honest with you. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not at that level now. But I mean, Ed's 56, 57, something like that. So, in this decade, could I be the last man standing? Yeah, I think so. That's the goal. Now, I would say that I bet that if you go into the 120-mile range and it's you're number 2, right? That would be very difficult. Then, like, if there was 6 guys or girls running in the 130s, that would be amazing. That would be a spectacle. but I'm not confident in myself that I could. What's it called? The second guy, the pace or the something. They give it a name.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know that I would have the ability to go toe to toe with somebody yet. Right now, that's the thing. Being in a pack is different.
I almost think the pack's harder.
You do?
Man, you and I think so much different. It cracks
I
me up.
know. Yeah.
Like to me, like if it's one on one, it's like, oh, I'm tougher than you. Like that like that's in my wheelhouse. Having 5 or 6, it's like there's too many people that there's it. Yeah, there's too much potential here. Like I can't beat all of them. Like I
Right.
can take one person.
That's the goal.
Yeah. No, I do think that like I mean I already feel like we're competitors when we toe that line. Like when I want to say that like when maybe not maybe they haven't realized it yet this year, but like when we toe the line, some of those elite runners know that we're some of the people that'll be there at the end.
Yeah.
Like when we get to that race and we're looking around, Jason and they're gonna be like we're doing our own thing. We'll see you there tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? Like there's only a few that are going to be there tomorrow morning. Like
yeah, yeah.
And we're in that pack for sure. So we're in the I want to say elite category. I can't let myself get too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got enough confidence going into this year that I'll be able to outperform myself. I know what I need to do in the next 9 months to get there. I do think that I didn't start paying attention to Last Man Standing until the summertime last year. I don't know why. It wasn't really on my radar, and maybe it's because I didn't know what to expect. But now it's like this is what I'm training for this year, and that's fun. I like that, and I have a lot of confidence that in 9 months I can get myself to a position to outperform myself last year for sure.
I posted that picture of you, me, like the top. I think it was like 6 or 7. I think a couple people were on camera in the picture. That just looking at that picture, I don't know why that picture even came up. Got me so pumped. Like I was like I want to print that out and have that. Like I want to look at that every day because it's a weird kind of motivation. Like I'd be so frustrated if something happened and I didn't get there. You know what I mean? Like I twist an ankle and because that's all it takes. I mean, that's something I have to like. So as much as we have kind of goals and places we want to be, what we're doing is there's so many places something can go wrong. And that doesn't mean you weren't prepared, doesn't mean you trained. So like, and like if I twist my ankle at 50 or for whatever reason, my nutrition plan, something goes wrong. I mean, the real goal is to push our limits. And for whatever reason, that's your limit on your day and you push yourself. If I'm quitting at 50, I literally hit a limit, right? Like, there's something really that I was up against. And
well, think about weather. That's something I think about too. Is like we had almost a perfect day. I mean, could you what if it's 50 and raining, right? I mean, as tough as you think you are, like a lot of those little things can change the entire day. So,
like letting myself kind of mentally like the balance thing. Like I have these hopes, but I also need to be okay with if my goal is to push myself, right? That's the real goal. And as long as I push myself, then I need to let myself be happy. The result number wise shouldn't be, isn't really the goal. Yeah. Cause, and I feel like I have in my back pocket what I did last year. So like, so like, that's like, you can't take that away from me now. And
I think it's just building up from there.
Yeah. No, it's been an awesome journey, JT, and I'm pumped to do it with you. Any quick thoughts on Quinn? Did you listen to some of that, right?
I did, yeah. I thought both Quinn's and Luke's podcasts were fantastic. I mean, it's enjoyable to get their perspective because we grew up with them and to kind of hear and listen to the way that they've processed the last 40 plus years. There was a lot of things that I think I probably knew or was, kind of aware of their way of thinking. But there was definitely some anecdotal or historical evidence, the stuff that, I thought was really interesting. I mean, I think of Uncle Mike. I have my own vision of Uncle Mike and, you know, who he was, but that was their dad, and hearing the little stories about some of the wisdom that he imparted and how he did it was really interesting.
Yeah, I was blown away. Quinn caught me completely off guard when he's like, "So can we talk about religion?" Towards the end, I was not prepared at
Right.
all. And
I've
then,
had those conversations with Quinn a lot, which is cool. So I kind of knew his perspective on things. Yeah.
Luke. So we're emailing back and forth. And he's like, "Can we talk about religion?" I'm like, "What is it with these porters?"
They're deep thinkers, man. And they have I mean, what was exciting to me is that um, their way of thinking was influenced by their family, and it's the same family that I have. So like, I know Georgia and Mike's perspective. I know Grampy Curtis's perspective, your dad's perspective, my parents' perspective. So like, the way that they look at religion makes perfect sense to me based on the influences that they had, that we all had. And I thought it was really, really keen. I applaud anybody for intentionally exploring their spiritual life. Like, I think if you aren't exploring your spiritual life, you're missing out, because I believe we're spiritual beings. Religion aside, and religion is just an institution at the end of the day. Um, like, can you explain to me like the cosmos and consciousness and why we wake up to a sun every single morning, and like how we have feelings like love and jealousy? Like, it's weird, man. Like, you got to be able to acknowledge that this experience is very weird. You can't reduce it down to just an atom and a computer program. So like, give some thought to like, who are we as spiritual beings, and what do I believe in? And they've clearly done that work. They've come to their own conclusions, different than mine, but they've at least explored it, which I think is important.
And I think of as family sizes have dwindled, how lucky we are to like that. I mean, it just that after Quinn and Luke, and I mean, I'm just, and you, like, I mean, I feel absolutely blessed that we have this
Yeah.
group of thinkers and individuals. Like, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, imagine growing up in a family where you have like one cousin. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
or as an only child, or what. We had this. I don't know. We grew up in such a special time, I think, in the world. Yeah, yeah. I feel
And there was
really
a lot of
blessed.
and I liked the diversity of thinking in our family, and it definitely made me better at dealing with other people's perspectives and opinions, because they can differ like that. I do remember watching Luke's podcast and just missing Luke. Like, I was like, man, I forgot how much I like just listening to Luke. Like, he's such a smart guy. His story about being in the elevator, with the inmates, was like, it gave me goosebumps. There was a couple times I got goosebumps with Quinn talking and with Luke talking. And I mean, Luke was an animal, but he was also just the nicest guy, And
And then you
so
combine
yeah,
him
that was
with Amy. You know what I mean? Like, the two of them, like
yeah,
the sweetest couple.
yeah, and they've done so well, and so that was, it was really cool to kind of listen to that. And obviously, like, the other thing that I really enjoy is like professionals, people that take their calling or their profession seriously. And obviously Luke has a really strong perspective on police enforcement, and he's always been super engaged. So it was cool to see his perspective on that as well.
Well, I have to thank you for starting me on this journey with the podcast, because I mean, honestly, like, when would I have ever had an opportunity to sit down with Quint or Luke for 3 hours
Right.
or 2 hour, whatever?
Yeah.
And it just gives me this like excuse to like reach out to people that I like.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's been great. You did a lot this past year. How many? 19?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to do. I think my goal is like 2 a month would be.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of ideal.
Yeah.
time wise, which then gets me close to 50.
That's amazing.
So we'll see where it all goes, but it's fun. I've reached out to some other cousins. I've tried to find. I think Brad's kind of, it hasn't got back to me. I've tried a couple of different ways to get a hold of him, but
Yeah,
we'll see, because I haven't.
Yeah.
He's such an interesting kind of guy, and I don't know much about where his path has led him. But
right. No, that'd be cool to reconnect.
yeah, but like I said, it's just an awesome excuse.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's funny, actually. I was had a work meeting, work lunch, and with a guy that's trying to start up a podcast, and we started talking about getting on that, and energy related topics and stuff like that. But it's cool because I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm really comfortable with this format now, right? Just because we've done, I don't know, several at this point, with, and 2 hours flies by with, you always go into these discussions, you're like, am I gonna have something to say? And then you have plenty to say. So it's cool because this is a huge medium for a lot of people now to get information out. So just it's productive on my side as well.
And I just feel selfishly, even if this never goes anywhere publicly, like I've got so much out of it. Like
Right.
It's cool. So
Yeah, it's awesome.
and it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't started this off.
Started and then did not finish.
I keep
There's a trend here, Ben.
I often reference you as like you're putting me on a path of all this crazy stupid stuff, which is absolutely true.
Right.
Fasting, fasting, ultra running, podcasting.
Yeah. It's a good lifestyle, man. Like it's better. We're all better for it. So and I like, it's a whole nother topic, but my kids, I can see them, they have the bug in a lot of ways, and they're learning a lot about it. So that was the goal, right? It's just live your life that's reflection of something you're proud of, and hope that the people around you can pick up pieces of it.
Try to be somewhat, I don't know if inspirational is the right word, but like a good example of what's possible when you put your mind to it.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
All right, thank you so much for doing this as usual.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this year. We've got a lot to do.
I would like to do. I mean, Joe mentioned doing one, and we hoped Christmas, but that just didn't happen. I knew that was going to be a challenge to try to schedule into his week. But he mentioned he could interview us. I'm like, that would be cool. Like, because you and I are in this running world, and we're approaching. We have similar goals. Have somebody from the outside looking in and ask it, like, would be interesting, I think.
Yeah. Well, he'll be home this summer. That would be a good one to do in person.
Yep. Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
All
good
right.
luck. Good
Thanks.
luck with the training.
Yeah. Thanks, you too. Thanks.
All right. Bye.